Andrew Jackson was one of the most important figures in American history. He was the seventh President of the United States, and his life was full of adventure, challenges, and big decisions. He was born in 1767 in a small log cabin in the Waxhaws region, which is now part of North Carolina and South Carolina. His family was poor, and life was not easy for them. His father died before he was born, and his mother and two older brothers worked hard to take care of him. When Andrew was just a young boy, the American Revolutionary War began. This was a war between the American colonies and Great Britain, and it changed Andrew's life forever. During the war, Andrew Jackson and his brothers joined the fight for independence. Andrew was only 13 years old when he became a messenger for the American soldiers. It was a dangerous job because he had to deliver messages across enemy lines. Sadly, his older brother Hugh died during the war, and Andrew and his other brother Robert were captured by British soldiers. While they were prisoners, a British officer ordered Andrew to clean his boots. Andrew refused, and the officer became angry. He slashed Andrew with his sword, leaving a scar on his face and hand that Andrew would carry for the rest of his life. This experience made Andrew hate the British and shaped his strong, defiant personality. After the war, Andrew's mother died and he was left alone at the age of 14. He had to take care of himself, and he worked hard to build a future. He decided to study law, and by the time he was 20, he had become a lawyer. He moved to Tennessee, which was a wild and untamed part of America at the time. There, he started his career as a lawyer and quickly became successful. He also became involved in politics and was known for his strong opinions and fiery temper. He was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in, even if it meant getting into fights or duels. In fact, Andrew Jackson fought in several duels during his life, and he was even shot in one of them. The bullet stayed in his chest for the rest of his life, but he survived and continued to live with courage and determination. Andrew Jackson's big break came during the War of 1812. This was another war between the United States and Britain, and it gave Jackson the chance to show his leadership skills. He was put in charge of the American forces in the South, and he led his men to victory in several important battles. The most famous of these was the Battle of New Orleans. The British Army had thousands of well-trained soldiers, while Jackson's army was made up of regular people, including farmers, free African Americans, and Native Americans. Despite being outnumbered, Jackson and his men fought bravely and won the battle. This made Andrew Jackson a national hero, and people started calling him Old Hickory, because he was as tough as a hickory tree. After the war, Andrew Jackson became even more popular, and many people wanted him to run for president. In 1824, he ran for the first time, but he lost the election to John Quincy Adams. Jackson and his supporters believed the election was unfair, and they were determined to win the next time. In 1828, Jackson ran again, and this time he won. He became the seventh President of the United States, and his presidency was unlike any before it. Jackson was the first president who did not come from a wealthy, elite family. He was a self-made man who had worked hard to achieve success, and he believed in giving power to the common people. This idea was called Jacksonian democracy, and it changed American politics forever. As president, Andrew Jackson made many important decisions. One of his first actions was to introduce the spoils system. This meant that he fired many government workers and replaced them with his own supporters. Jackson believed this was a way to make the government more democratic, but many people criticized him for it. They thought it was unfair to fire experienced workers just because they supported a different political party. Despite the criticism, Jackson stuck to his decision and continued to make changes that he believed would help the common people. One of the most controversial decisions Andrew Jackson made as president was the Indian Removal Act. At that time, many Native American tribes lived in the southeastern part of the United States. White settlers wanted their land for farming and development, and they pressured the government to remove the Native Americans. Jackson agreed with this idea, and in 1830, he signed the Indian Removal Act into law. This law forced Native American tribes to leave their ancestral lands and move to a place called Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma. The journey was long and difficult, and thousands of Native Americans died from disease, starvation, and exhaustion. This tragic event is known as the Trail of Tears, and it is one of the darkest chapters in American history. Many people today criticize Jackson for this decision, but at the time, he believed it was necessary for the growth of the country. Another major issue during Jackson's presidency was the National Bank. Jackson did not like the bank because he thought it was too powerful and only helped rich people. He believed it was unfair to the common people, so he decided to shut it down. This caused a lot of arguments and problems in the country, but Jackson was determined to do what he thought was right. He vetoed or rejected a law that would have kept the bank open, and eventually, the bank was closed. This decision made Jackson even more popular with the common people, but it also made him many enemies among the wealthy and powerful. Andrew Jackson was a strong and stubborn leader. He did not back down from fights, whether they were physical or political. He believed in himself and his ideas, and he was not afraid to make tough decisions. This made him a very effective leader, but it also caused a lot of controversy. Some people loved him, and some people hated him. But no one could ignore him. He was a larger-than-life figure who left a big mark on American history. After his presidency, Andrew Jackson retired to his home in Tennessee, called the Hermitage. He lived there for the rest of his life, and he continued to be involved in politics and public life. He died in 1845, but his legacy lived on. He is remembered as a man who fought for the common people and who helped shape the modern presidency. His face is even on the $20 bill, which shows how important he is in American history. Andrew Jackson's life was full of ups and downs. He faced many challenges, but he never gave up. He was a soldier, a lawyer, a politician, and a president. He was a hero to some and a villain to others. But no matter what people think of him, there is no doubt that he was one of the most influential figures in American history. His story is a reminder that even someone from a humble background can rise to greatness and make a difference in the world.